Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Nightmares Podcast, where we talk about all things horror movies, comics, games, you fucking name it, and sometimes movie shit. We don't know. I'm your host, Zachary Smith, and I'm joined today by Brandon Rakowski and Mark the Kitty Cat Conway. Oh, I'm sorry. American Zacko is my name now, apparently.
You have been blessed with that name. Now,
I have been blessed.
The,
Yeah, sure, that's
we-
what we're going to call it.
No, we just gave it to you and said you had no choice. And then occasionally we interview people on the Nightmares podcast as well. So
And today, you're one of them.
I am I think it's only appropriate because I'll be acting in the next episode of Living Nightmares. So that was the brilliant idea of Mr. Brandon Rakowski to ask me some questions, and maybe I'll tell the truth, or maybe I'll tell an exaggerated version of the truth. I don't know.
Let's go with the exaggerated version because that's what he does.
The
I was on the roof doing a little fiddle. I don't know where I was going with that.
And full disclosure here, I came up with the idea for this interview because I just got back from a 3-day trip filming in Michigan. I'm super tired, and I realized if we interview you, I don't have to think of anything, and I don't have to research anything.
I mean, you have to think of questions and research questions, you know.
And also, I've also had a very, very similar day that Brandon has had, so I was more than happy to oblige of doing zero work with this because we're just talking about me. However, I wasn't going to admit it, but since Brandon did first, I figured I'd join the party as well.
Yes.
Brandon's far more honest in that regard. I was just going to say, we were brilliant. Of course we came up with this. Of course we thought for weeks about this amazing thing that we were going to do. No, I don't know.
No, just Brandon got too much sun over these last 3 days.
Brandon is very, very white, so he is a little pale. So he can't really take a lot of rays.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So question 1. You've acted in horror projects.
I have.
I should probably say. So we are interviewing you specifically about acting in horror films.
Yep.
You've done 2 shorts, 1 feature, correct? Or was it 2 features, 1 short?
It was 2 features and 1 short.
Okay.
And
Because I've seen 2 of the 3. I have not seen your first one.
no, you haven't got an opportunity to see the first one. And it was actually a longer short too. So it was probably about 15, 20 minutes worth of a short too. So it was a little bit longer. So and it was definitely a hell of a production. And then also I was briefly in a horror play as well. It was the first acting job I was ever fired from, but we'll get to that in a second.
Was it the only job you were ever fired from, acting-wise?
No, that was the only time I was ever fired. It was great. I learned a lot from what to do and what not to do from that particular situation.
Of course, the one horror play he manages to get into. You're fired! Oh, well, shit.
So your first horror project was A Chance in Hell.
It was.
Directed by Tony Wash, who we interviewed last year on the podcast.
God, it's already been a year at this point.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Pretty damn close to it.
So that was your first, and you're an extra in that one.
I was, and
Yes.
I was also a PA on staff. That was an opportunity for me to earn my bones and and really understand how the film process works. Because I had done like a few film clubs in high school before then, and I had done a few amateur, very very amateur stuff, very similar to what you did, Zach. You and I were doing very similar stuff at the same time when you used to go out to Algonquin and shoot films with your friends.
Oh, Jesus
like
Christ.
it was shit like that.
You've never seen those films.
And you'll never see the ones that I was involved in either.
Yeah, there's a difference. Yours are just obliterated into the ether. Mine's on a DVD.
Somewhere over there.
Yep.
If we find the combination to the safe, maybe we'll get in one day. But yeah, that was the first time that I was actually, if memory serves, I think that was the first time I was ever on a legitimate production of that scale. I mean, it was definitely a $100,000 budget type deal. I mean, he was dealing with a Red camera at the time, which was the camera of 2010, which is when that film came out.
Okay, I was gonna say, what year was this? 2010?
2010, right around there. And it was a full-scale production. They had a crew of probably about 30 people. They had a couple makeup artists that had come in from the East Coast, I believe Philadelphia. It was a whole team. It was like 6 different FX artists, and headed by several department heads. They had effects guys. They had stunt coordinators. They had Dallas grips. It was a full scale production, and it was kind of cool.
The blood, the guts, the gore, the works.
And it actually was a hell of a first time experience to be learning that stuff, and I'm glad that I was a PA. Obviously, I eventually got into acting, but the first couple days I was there in the old Elgin Watch Factory, I was putting shit together. I built a fucking coat rack to make sure that all of the extras and the actual actors came in could hang up their coats. I had helped put a few of the dolly tracks together that were out of CVC piping. I had helped move a bunch of older equipment, and it was a cool experience. It was a cool experience to be on both sides of the camera in that production. But the next couple days, they had one big day where they filmed all of the extra shit, and obviously the whole film was about a platoon of American soldiers in World War II that stumble upon a Nazi concentration camp / experimental place where they were trying to develop super soldiers, and whoops, the Nazis invented zombies instead. So it's the American soldiers trying to fight their way through this facility, and they go ahead and get picked off one by one, and then it was that one big day where we had all the extras there. I got to be dished out in makeup. Actually, Brandon, I'll send you a few photos from there, so you can probably stream it in the podcast so you can see me in all my makeup glory. It was actually fantastic stuff. It was fantastic work. It was really, really great work, and I mean, for people getting paid probably the bare minimum to come out here and put those effects on, God, like 30 or 35 extras. Like they did tremendous work, and every single extra was costume fitted, so that a costume designer to actually work with them. So Tony had a hell of a production. It certainly gave me an idea about how to be on a bigger set, what the protocol was, and it happened to be a horror movie, which was a fuck ton of fun. Got to be a crazy zombie creature and run after a couple soldiers and be in all this great effects makeup, which got me.
So you had to go through the whole makeup process. Yep. What was that like? How long were you in the makeup chair for?
I got to be in the makeup chair for about 45 minutes, to an hour. And they had multiple people working on it. And this is something interesting. This is like my first taste of horror movie culture, and there's a great thing about it, and it's in like Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Like they talk about it in like behind the scenes stuff. They make a huge joke about the guy from Wes Craven's New Nightmare, how he could never be the makeup guy because all the makeup guys are huge burly Viking guys that talk about like grindcore metal and thrash metal and shit, and they'll sit there and like they'll mix the plaster and be like, I saw Metallica back in '84 or '86, it's fucking awesome. Fuck Dave Mustaine and shit. It's a fucking pussy. Got kicked out because he's an asshole. And then every girl on that staff was all a princess, a dark princess, pixie kind of girl that'll talk to you about Nightmare Before Christmas and every freaking Tim Burton movie for hours on end. And I started to see some of the stereotypes and the tropes that go in for in this case for the better, because I fucking love metal, and I loved sitting down and bullshitting about metal music with these guys for hours for the entire time that I was in the chair. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to be around that, and that's where I first started to realize, like, oh shit, like, the culture is really cool. It's a really friendly group, and they're very inviting. They want people to be a part of it, and we said this a bunch on different podcasts, but The community loves to talk to the fans. The fans love to talk to the filmmakers. Filmmakers love to talk to other. Like they all get together afterwards and have a beer. Like it's not. There's nothing serious about it in that regard. You can do some serious work and you can do some great work, but but it's just not. It's not the kind of culture that's very pretentious or taking shit seriously that probably shouldn't be taken seriously.
I make the grandest of Oscar bait A24 films. What do you do?
Yeah, it's not a lot of that bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, and that's why I tell all of my actor friends, and I've told Vinny, I've told several different people, like, you got to be in a fucking horror movie. Because it's just a good time. It allows you to free up your, ambitions. You can just enjoy being on a set and being around the culture because it's a good, positive energy. And which is ironic because horror is all about human beings and other things, or creatures doing horrible things to other human beings. But you couldn't, meet a more loving community. So
We bring all that to the film so we don't have to worry about it in real life.
Pretty much.
Exactly.
It's a great form of stress relief.
That's what I've always equated it to. It's a way for you to get your demons out without actually getting your demons out.
Yep.
Some people have video games, some people have horror movies.
You have both.
Yep. Ha ha!
So yeah, it was a fun experience.
Good.
So how did you get involved with that one? Like, what did you have to do? Did you just meet Tony one day, just walking around and be like, "Hey, how you doing? Want to be in a movie?"
So Tony's actually from St. Charles, Illinois, which is right next to Elgin, where my college is, ECC, and they were hosting auditions for several different roles. I know that, and I had actually auditioned for Tony for a couple of the speaking roles. Didn't work out. But I ended up, talking with a few people that were that I'm friends with, including Vinny, who had come on, and they said, hey, they're looking for people to be extras and everything else. Why don't you tag along? And I think I got in I started to be friendly with Tony because I'd run into Tony because he worked at Village Squire and I used to be in there all the time. So I'd run into him, and I think through the course of conversation, he just said, hey, why don't you come on and be a PA? And then you can just be in an extra. But I had auditioned for the actual film itself. And unfortunately didn't get it that time. But it was one of those things that it was just a matter of circumstance of being in the right place at the right time and, and talking with the right people. But, all my friends from college were most of them that were in the theater department were in that movie. So it was only natural for me to be there at that time. So it was fun, but that's generally how I got involved with Tony, and then still periodically saw him even after that filming, and then him and I would check in on each other. Hey, what are you working on? Hey, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm up to, and little conversations here and there.
Short and sweet. Cool.
So you were one of the zombies in the project. So what did your background acting, entail of? Like, what did you have to do?
It was a lot of physical, actually, which was kind of cool. I know that they actually had a stunt coordinator on set to do a little bit of rehearsal, and Tony actually did this like interesting thing where he had a huge general rehearsal like earlier that day before everybody got into makeup, and they kind of made like like you see in those 80s movies, like they have the dance line where they have like the guys on one side and the girls on the other side, and then they come together and they kind of go down the center. Like they did that for everybody, and got an opportunity to show their zombie walk. And then Tony would, as the people were going down, he would shout out directions and say, "Hey, try this, try that," and then also we worked with the stunt coordinator that was on there. About doing some falls and doing some movements. I did a little bit of dance in the theater, so it was a lot of like movement work, honestly. And it was just having really fucking high energy because I have high energy now, but even back then I can out enthusiastic anybody.
So it was kind of a lesson in acting is more than just saying your lines that you've been given.
Yeah, it really, the good news is I've always known that, so it was easier to do that. And actually, the funny thing is that most of the time, if I were to, I think that was advice from Harrison Ford, he is always like very specific of why is this line being said? Does it need to be there? And sometimes, you can say a bunch of shit, especially in film, a bunch of shit without even saying anything. And sometimes truly less is more. So if you can convey whatever you're doing physically, why not? Or with a look, or with a thought, or whatever the case may be, then why not do that?
I'm going to sidetrack here a little bit just because I'm curious. What is your favorite Harrison Ford performance? Not the
Ooh.
best movie you think it was in, but actual just looking at his individual performances. If you had to pick one or two.
You know what? It's going to be The Fugitive
Okay.
and Indiana Jones.
Do you want to know what mine is?
See, the correct answer was Han Solo in Episode 5.
No, I love. I love the character of Indiana Jones. You know, he's extremely flawed. There's a lot of similarities between him and John McClane. And that's why I like both of them. You know, they're real people.
I have a recommendation for you. My favorite Harrison Ford performance is actually in a movie that barely anybody knows these days, but it was in the 1986 movie The Mosquito Coast.
I've heard of it. I've seen some clips from it. Never saw it all the way
It's
through.
really good. Same director as The Truman Show, Dead Poets Society,
Oh.
Witness, Master and Commander,
Oh, then I would absolutely
Year
love
of
it.
Living Dangerously, Gallipoli.
Yeah, then I would absolutely love that. That'd be tremendous. The
I saw the Truman Show once. It was,
It's great.
It's great. You should watch it now.
No, it was like 5 years ago.
Watch it now.
You're a much different person
Yeah.
now than you were 5 years ago.
That is
Actually, it
absolutely,
might have been longer than 5 years ago.
You're a much different
different
person
person.
now than you were more than 5 years ago.
You don't know that.
I
Yes,
do know
I
that.
do.
I really do. I really know that. Those are definitely my picks though for the Harrison Ford movies. Of course, love his famous point.
I do want to briefly touch on that horror play, but before we do that, is there anything left over from Chance and Hell that you haven't had a chance to talk about that you want to bring up?
The only thing I would say is that it was the first opportunity for me to realize that, oh, wait a minute, there's a whole other thing going on. You can have a bigger production with them. You can have people there that are of talent, and I think a lot of people just want to be involved with film. Like, they just love it, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a lot of money involved. And there certainly was a lot of money with Tony's production, more than I had ever seen. But it still, at the very end, was a lower end indie film. But there's a lot of passion with it, and you can handle a big production. You can do something that looks professional. That's where I came up with that quote. How much money do you think that cost us? Like, that's Tony's quote. That's how he had always measured. He's like, how much money do you think I spent on that? And a lot of people who guess, Chance and Hell, people say $1 million. He's like, no, $100,000. And then they go, oh shit, and that it's always a good trick to with film. You can say you say, well, imagine what I could do with $1 million. If I can do this with $100,000, imagine what I could do with the money that you think it cost me to do that. And that's that whole imagination thing. But yeah, I learned a lot, not only about acting and that it was a fun exercise in culture and a fun exercise in acting. That was more of a great experience for just my position now as a producer and a co-owner or actually an executive producer in this case of most of our projects in Midwest Horror Network. There's a good education there and a good, fantastic exercise in acting to keep me sharp. So it was a great experience. And it was at a good time. I was 20, or I was like 19, 18. So it was a perfect time for me to get that lesson.
All right. So this horror play you're in,
This ought to be interesting.
we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording. It sounds like you really just have one real story from it.
It's not, the funny thing is that so I'll give you the general gist. You know what the funny thing is? I'm not even doing this. I'm not omitting the title on purpose. I actually just don't remember the title of the play. I've it was such a very short-lived, like, it was literally 3 weeks. Like, it was a 3-week thing and it was only like twice a week for 3 weeks. So a total of 6 separate rehearsals that actually happened with this play. It was in Elgin. I had auditioned for it, and the audition went okay, if I remember correctly. And these are things that I kind of vaguely remember. And and I was like, oh, that was okay. I actually did not think that I was going to get it. I really and I guess part of me didn't want it. There was some personal stuff with that, reasons why that they had some prior commitments. Actually, I was just tell you, I was leaving for vacation when the play was being premiered. And my family was leaving, and I actually bought a separate plane ticket because in anticipation to be in town for that play. It was interesting to try to transfer miles after that.
I bet.
But when we got into the rehearsal process, we the general gist of this the play first is that it's a kind of a noises off type of play. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what noises off is.
No.
It's about it's literally a play about the backstage during a play. So it's kind of like that Final Girls, except it's the reverse. So you know how when you go to see a play, there's a play going on stage.
Yeah.
But there's people doing shit in the backstage. It's literally the story about the people doing the shit in the backstage.
Okay.
So, and then they literally, like, at the beginning of the play, they because in Noises Off, and actually they occasionally switch. So the stage actually shifts. So you can actually see the play in the front, and then it shifts to the back. It's actually very, very cool how they do it. It's a musical, but it's about a play being rehearsed, and basically the end of the world happens, and then a zombie apocalypse happens in the midst of the play. And then slowly cast members get infected, and eventually it ends up with just being the director, who was French in the play and French in real life, and then one other girl, and they literally they bunker together, and then it's the end. And the play was supposed to have not as dramatic of effects as like Evil Dead.
Yeah,
Evil
like
Dead
they weren't gonna have a splatter zone or anything.
They weren't going to have that, but they were going to have legitimate effects on there. And actually,
Okay.
The funny thing is they're going to add even more effects. And and then we went to the first rehearsal, and for some reason, I guess a lot of these people were off book already, which was very odd.
Off book.
When you no longer have your script in your hand. That's what off book means when you're in theater. Sorry, I'm throwing some terms around that are theater oriented. But off book meaning you no longer have your book in your hand. Because when you're going through the rehearsal process, you have your lines right there. And you're just kind of like, you're blocking it out. You're working it out. And then it got a little bit closer. And then people were going a little bit faster than I was. And the director wasn't offering a lot of direction. I'd ask him, hey, because he also wrote the play, like, hey, who is this guy? Tell me a little bit about him, and what you kind of going. And his answer was always, well, he's just a guy. He's just a guy.
He's just that one dude over there. Cool.
Yeah. And then also too, and there was that, but there was also me as well, because I was coming off of doing a film, it was a comedy film, and the problem was that I was used to experimenting and ad-libbing, and like the text, the lines to me were just kind of like a guideline. Hey, you make sure you get the cues right, but like let's play, let's experiment, because this is a rehearsal process. The other people, that wasn't their style. They wanted to stick to the text, and then that was it, and then that was that. And that's a perfectly valid way of handling your business. Like, you can do what you want to do. But it was just a difference of style. And also the girl that I was supposed to be in a relationship with, I guess she was my ex-girlfriend. And then, like we're rekindling, and there's a whole thing with that. There's zero chemistry. Like, zero chemistry. And that was a poor choice on the director's part of not having us do a chemistry read beforehand. I don't know if he's out of time. Like we do with our process. We want to make sure that those people are going to work well together, and that never happened. So, and I was also feeling like the odd man out. All the rest of the cast was clicking together, but I wasn't clicking with them. And I also didn't want to be the bad guy. I was thinking, I was like, what, this is just not right. I think I was about like a rehearsal and a half to approaching the director and saying, hey, man, this isn't working. Because I could feel it in the air. But the director obliged to just go ahead and say, hey, Mark, we're gonna go a different direction. And he said some other stuff that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Like, yeah, we're gonna get a little bit more effects oriented, and and I was like, I don't have any idea what the hell that means. I think you're just trying to make me feel better. In retrospect, I think if it happened to me today, I would have quit the second rehearsal. But I didn't have the maturity enough to, or the confidence enough. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't act on it. And that was one of those life lessons of hey, sometimes you got to take ownership of a situation before somebody else takes ownership of a situation, because you can at least do it on your own terms. And and also too with theater, it's harder, man, because it's such a acting, in theater, it's an actor's medium, so you're a unit in a family. And if one person bails, it kind of fucks everybody up. So I don't want to be that guy. That's a cultural thing. But yeah, it was supposed to be a very effects-driven play. It's supposed to be a lot of blood, a lot of guts. I mean, obviously it's a zombie-oriented thing, but yeah, it just didn't work out. And I got a letter and half of the pay that I was supposed to get.
Oh wow, this was paid?
This was paid. It was stipend. It was like a one check for the whole thing. I forgot what the hell it was. And I got a letter. My dad said you should frame that letter, keep it around to give you motivation. Excuse me. I think I threw it away, which actually kind of sucks, because I really would have loved to have kept it. And I would have loved to have framed it and just keep it around for, hey, I remember that. But yeah, it was just one of those things. It was just one of those things, just different styles, different ways, immaturity on my part to not understand the situation and how to properly handle that. But again, had it happened today, it would have been a different story. I would have, I would have read the script, I would have known, I would have felt the chemistry, and have been like, hey, listen, man, this isn't right. Everyone over here is vibing and they're doing very well together, and I'm the odd man out. That can't happen. Not to this degree. You could have a person, in theater that just doesn't socially get along with the people, and then that happens all the time. People break off in cliques. It's a lot of not as accepting as the horror community, but you can have that. I've had that before, but when you don't have any chemistry on stage, it's gonna suffer.
And then it turns into a shit show.
Exactly. And that was one of those times that I should have, I shouldn't have been fired. I should have been fired for sure. It was the right thing to do, but I should have never been cast. I should have never been cast in that. It should have been gone to somebody else.
Yeah.
And yeah, I never knew what the fate of that play was. I think the director was on my Facebook for a long time, and then I think eventually, I think he probably deleted me, because not for malicious reasons, just for, I haven't talked to you in forever. People clean house with that. But yeah, it was just one of those experiences that that you learn from, and I didn't do a whole lot of acting. It wasn't really, there wasn't a lot of acting for me to do, because there wasn't much work to be done.
All right. So the next horror project you were in was the feature.
Yes, it was.
Or was it the first half of Zach's short?
No, it was the feature first.
So I remember me and him did a little bit of talking about his feature at the time. He showed me a trailer at the very, because they had already had a trailer out by that point. I don't think it was fully finished, but they at least had a trailer.
I think they had a few
they had something, because you did show me some footage.
They had a few pickups to handle in between there. It was kind of a blur, because I know that I think they had filmed in the summer. I had filmed with you in the winter.
I believe it was January.
And then that following summer, we did the part 2 of it.
Funny story. The main reason I remember we filmed it in January, because there was this one shot in my film where we were shooting in my bathroom, and David really wanted to set up a light outside the bathroom, which means somebody had to go outside, I think it was the 3K or 6K, whatever the hell the big one we had.
The big one?
Not the biggest one, but the big one that came in the kits.
The 650?
No. Was it 650?
Is it comparable to the
one? The biggest one in the light kit. Your light kit.
Similar to, yeah, that's 650.
Yeah. Okay, so somebody had to go hold a 650 out there, and pointed it in my bathroom, and it was 0 degrees outside. I couldn't do it because I needed to direct. David couldn't do it because, he needed to DP and, be in there with me. So Marcus got stuck out there in 0 degree weather for a half hour holding that light.
Fun.
Thank you, Marcus.
Fun. Shout out to Marcus.
But back to this film. We'll go back to the other one later.
But technically, I kind of went quite a bit. I talked a lot more about that play than I thought I would. Yeah. Maybe I still said some underlining feelings about it. Still a little upset
some
about it.
Some repressed emotions, just like, fuck you.
Still a little bitter.
All right, so we have a feature. It was called Beware of the Clowns. And you were one of the leads for this.
I was the leader of the cult of clowns. Yes. King Clown, as I'm set on.
So you were the lead villain. So is this like your first lead role on the screen?
On the screen, no.
Okay.
I had played a lead supporting character in several other, or featured
lead supporting.
It was a supporting character. I don't know. Like, I guess I'm still technically the supporting character in that.
Yeah,
in Where the Clowns. I'm
it's
the villain.
one of the, like, I've seen it, and it's one of those stories where it's like the protagonist and the antagonist are kind of co-leads.
Yeah,
kind of like how DiCaprio and Damon are in The Departed. Like neither of those two, neither of them is really the lead more than the other.
That I've never heard anybody say it quite like that, but yeah, I would agree with that. I had done supporting stuff. I had done a lead in a play. I had done supporting stuff in a feature film. But yeah, this is the first time I've ever done. I think this is the first time I ever played a villain on screen. It was the first time I ever did that. It was an interesting experience. It was a very interesting experience.
So let's start with, what was the movie about, and how did you become involved with it?
So Beware of the Clowns is the story of a small town in middle America that 20 years ago was plagued by a killer who was a clown. The sheriff finally of the time, or the deputy, he's a deputy at that time, finally discovers who that killer is, tracks him down to his home, and instead of arresting him, he murders him. And then after murdering him, he realizes, oh shit, that guy has a kid. And instead of explaining to the kid, hey, this is why I killed your dad because he was a monster, or doing anything, he just, told the kid to get lost and run away, and then never told anybody about it. I am assuming for plot reasons that because he was upset about all the murders that had happened. Is a John Wayne Gacy type of guy. So 20 years plus later, the sheriff is now the sheriff, and there is now a cult of clowns that is running amok throughout this little town. And on top of it, there is a clown law because of that serial killer clown, that no one could be a clown in that town.
So it's like Footloose, but with clowns in a way.
Pretty much, which is super fucking ironic because of what was going on in the country at the time. If you don't believe me, there were actually legitimate clown sightings of clowns coming out of the woods, roaming neighborhoods and streets, and then there were actually a lot of PSAs about sheriffs saying, hey, don't come out in clown makeup, otherwise we'll arrest you. So it was kind of loosely based on what was going on at the time, and there's a thing with the sheriff's daughter, sheriff's daughters, who are twins, and the one twin's boyfriend, his dad's a clown, so there's a little, an actual career clown, not a serial killer clown. So there's a little bit of conflict there. And then obviously me being the antagonist, I start going out and murdering people that aren't clowns, because I'm essentially a cult leader or a racist leader that's racist against everybody that is not a clown. The original title of this movie was Ku Klux Clowns. It was.
I wonder why that didn't get approved.
For obvious reasons, that was not approved. But because people that were trying to promote it couldn't even say it, let alone post it to their Facebooks.
Yo, guys, check out this. Oh.
So the title was quickly changed to Beware of the Clowns, but that was the original title because it was designed as a mockery of the Ku Klux Klan. And they were literally saying that they were clowns, and this was the horror version of that. So, and then what was the second question?
How did you become involved with it?
I was dating a girl at the time who was, funny enough, before I met you, I was involved in another crew of filmmakers that went to Tribeca. So including this girl who I was dating who was a film editor, who I got one of the best editing lessons, actor to editor lessons. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And she was actually very close friends with the director of Beware the Clowns. And one day we were on a Skype call, and for some reason, I think we were just bored and we're all Skyping together for fun. That was when Skype was actually fun, and not used for business purposes. We were all talking, and Tim kept trying to get off the call and saying, like, you see this, see this stack of note cards? Like, these are all kills in the movie. I have to go and write this into a script right now. I have to get off this fucking call. And I remember that. And then the next day, he came back on a Skype call. He says, yeah, I got a few sides done, a few pages done. And he was like, yeah, I got to figure out how to cast this. And she actually said, well, Mark's an actor. Why don't you have him give it a shot? He's like, yeah, let me email you, email you or Facebook you a couple sides. So he emailed me, and then I basically did a pseudo audition right there on the Skype call. And then I started fucking around with voices, and then I got to some. The hatred of the Westboro Baptist Church was very big at that point too in our culture. So I combined a little bit of that to get a nice Southern accent like this. Hi, I'm the leader of the Cult of the Clowns. It's very great.
Jesus Christ.
And that was the voice that I used. And I made it a little more higher pitched when I needed to, and what's wrong, Sheriff? You afraid of the monster that you've created? Shit like that. I don't, and I'm pretty sure that's close to what I did.
Pretty similar.
I imagine so, but yeah, I did the audition right there, and I did the voice. And it was a slight different variation of that, but Tim, looked at me and he's like, he kind of tilted his head and he was like, hey, do that again. Which is always a great thing that you love to hear from directors is like, hey, do that voice again, do that thing again, one more time. Just to see if you can do it one more time. And I did it again, and then I actually added a little bit more onto it. And he's like, yeah, I think that works. And then I think over the next couple of days, we talked about it a little bit more. I think he reached out to me separately, and he's like, hey, Mark, do you have any ideas? And, what do you want to bring to the character? It was more of a very, how Hollywood movie, actors talk with other directors. They don't really audition, they get kind of picked, and it's more of a conversation. And that was kind of the start of that conversation. And I was doing some research and everything else. In the film, it's in the B-roll and photos of the back, but I actually wrote commandments for the clowns. I actually wrote that. And I had the set designer actually write all 15 of the rules on the back of the door in there. And you'd have to dig through the photos, but I wrote that.
So you had 15 commandments for the clowns.
I did.
Jesus Christ.
I did. I had 15.
So Clown Moses did not drop the third tablet.
No, no, he did not. No, he ended up keeping that one. 15, either 15 or 13. I can't remember which one. It was. I knew it was more than 10 though. I think I did that on purpose. But I ended up writing it. I never made it into the final cut, but it is in somewhere in a deleted scene or something And I think if you look in the background of the sheriff and ours fight, you could probably see it. I had the set designer actually write them on the back of the door, which was pretty cool. So it was fun to see that. I would have to really dig in the Facebook to see if I can find, because I took a picture of it back then. But I did a lot of research. I watched I did a lot of research, and now that I'm thinking about it, I did a lot of work on that film. Like I researched like a bunch of cults. I read a book by Chuck Lorre, or Chuck. I think it's Chuck Lorre, the guy who wrote Fight Club.
Chuck Palahniuk. Chuck
Palahniuk
Lorre
is the one who
created
I don't know why I always switch them in my head. They're completely different people. But I read a book by him, by Chuck, called Survivor, which is actually a great book. I really recommend it to anybody. And it was all about a remaining survivor of a suicide cult. He was the last, he's the one person who didn't drink the Kool-Aid. And I know that sounds kind of humorous and ridiculous, but it's the truth. And it's he basically he hijacks a plane with the intention of killing himself and everyone else on the plane. And it's literally him recounting the story of his life to the air traffic controller. And that's the whole book. And it's great. It's a great fucking book. I recommend it to everybody. But I did that. I researched the Westboro Baptist Church. I researched the Ku Klux Klan. I researched a bunch of different cults. I really got into I love research. There's a book. I'm getting into philosophy right now. There's a book called The Respect for Acting by wow, I had her name in my head in a second. Brandon's gonna look it up. Anyway, in the book, she actually breaks down these.
Is it Uta Hagen?
Uta Hagen. That's how you pronounce it, Uta Hagen. She breaks down these list of 7 questions every actor should ask themselves when they're doing a play. And I remember I had to do an assignment in college where I had to do all of 7 of her questions, and I finally said, I don't fuck her questions. I don't want to ask her questions. I want to ask my questions. I want to ask what my definition is. And the funny thing is, the more I did that, the more I realized, like, oh shit, questions equal to other questions. So if I ask this question, 20 more questions are going to come up. And I've done it for every role. And what else is going on? Why is this person this way? Well, what happens if this had happened? You ask a shit ton of fucking questions. The big gist of that is you say fuck her question, her questions. You ask your own questions, and you discover all kinds of shit. So yeah, I did a lot of work on that. I did a lot of work building that character. It's everybody, everybody has an opinion about it. Good, bad, indifferent. But even the funny thing is, I'm not, as an actor, as a producer, I'm of course very fucking interested in how well the movie is perceived, and and is it gonna put somebody somewhere. But as an actor, like, I'm way more interested in the process. Like, the process is fun for me. Like, I would like to do the research. I like to find out more about the character, and I want to find out more about what they're all about, and the actual process of acting is fun for me. It's enjoyable for me. If it turns out that the film is great, fucking awesome. That's great. Like, if it all works out, that's fantastic.
So all the research you did, I assume that was prep work before filming began.
Yes.
How do you feel all that research affected your performance on set? And how is your chemistry with your co-stars?
On set, it actually helped me out a lot. It was really easy to slip in and out of the character. I knew I could feel the work that I had done. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew how I wanted to walk and move. Obviously we talked about movement a little bit. I knew, I knew that this guy should be like he's walking on air because he's a god. He's a god among that group, and he feels he's a god among everywhere else. He's just ascending to his rightful place. I'm gonna make everyone a clown in the world. He's nuts. It's kind of like the Helter Skelter shit of Marilyn Manson. He or Charles Manson, not Marilyn Manson. Charles Manson. Like, he wanted to rule over the post-apocalyptic world after the race war went into effect, and he would rule the world. And that's how this guy thinks. So yeah, it helped out a lot. I knew exactly how he moved. I knew exactly how he talked. I knew exactly how he thought, and things became a lot easier. When you've done the work, it's fun because you can play. because you can fuck around with things on set. You can find things that are different that you didn't think that will happen, but you got to be prepared and do the work. I related a lot to. I remember they did an interview with Robbie Gould, who's the goalie of the Hawks. This is real quick, and they asked him, "How do you make these amazing catches?" He's like, "I don't think about it. I just do it, because I've practiced it 1,000 times of catching it." And that's exactly how acting should be. You should have enough of the prep work so it becomes just second nature to you, and then you just fall into it. And then when you fall into it, then you can have fun. Once you kind of free to operate from behind, and you can try things. Like, what happens if I do this? What happens if I if in that torture scene, what happens if I fuck with the the girl a little bit longer, or I pretend to walk away, or pretend to change emotions. What happens if I try this? And then you can see how far you can take it. And then it's the director's job to cultivate and to try things. Zach knows this, and we'll get into one I worked with Zach, who I trust implicitly as a director. You can try shit. And then it's up to the director to say, all right, yeah, hey, that was awesome. And then or no,
bring it back.
We're not going to do that. We're gonna cut that.
That would be a no.
That would be no. That'd be a big no. But yeah, it helped out a lot. It helped out to have that research, and I was able to to work with the other actors, and especially the last scene, the sheriff and I actually refined the script with the final confrontation scene between them, and we worked out the blocking, and we worked out the beats in the script. We changed a lot of that script at the last scene because. I for multiple different reasons. I don't think we were satisfied. I think we thought that it wasn't fitting, the people that were cast at that point. But we felt enough chemistry and enough comfortability in our own characters to know, hey, this is not how we would do this. And then we kind of worked it out. I think our exact words were, "How are we going to fix this scene?" And we ended up rewriting a little bit, and obviously to Tim's dismay. Because he also was the writer, which this goes back to that argument of should writers also direct, because there is some of that, that type of conflict going back and forth.
Again, it depends. Can you separate yourself from the piece?
A lot of people can't.
A lot of people can't.
And I think that's the ultimate question. Can they? If they can separate themselves, then no worries. But if they can't, then that's when it becomes a problem. Because if you're so...
But then sometimes separating yourself can be an issue too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you have Paul Thomas Anderson, he writes his own scripts. And I think he was being interviewed by Jon Stewart on The Daily Show when The Master was coming out.
Okay.
And he was talking about, I write the script, but once I'm on set, I really don't care about the script. I'm not married to it.
Okay.
But then you have like David O. Russell, who also writes most of, if not all of his stuff.
Excuse me.
Because I know he wrote the screenplay for Silver Linings Playbook. I'm not remembering off the top of my head if he wrote the screenplay for The Fighter, but both of those movies are really good. But then you get to American Hustle. And he let the actors just improvise whatever. And there was even one point where it was either Christian Bale or Jeremy Renner. I think it was Bale, who told him on set, if I improvise like this, you're going to have to change the story. And he's just like, I don't care about the story, I care about the characters. And personally, I feel American Hustle just went off the rails past a certain point and never found its grounding again.
It was Swiss cheese.
Yeah, so sometimes not being married to the script, you gotta find that happy medium sometimes, I feel.
It's one of those things where, again, there's a balance to everything, Don't just disregard everybody's opinion, but also stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah, so it's... and everybody has their own line, and they can change their line whenever they want. But I feel I tend to gravitate towards, I have the script, this is what we're going to do, but if something better comes along, I am going to go with the better thing. I'm not just going to toss anything out willy-nilly for whatever reason. It's, we're going to do this, but if somebody has a better idea, there's that. Of course, there are limitations too. Like with our own Living Nightmares, we do
course.
have the limitation of we are staying as true to the story as we can. Now, if somebody has an idea for something that isn't mentioned in the story, if there's nothing in the story that conflicts with it, we'll kind of make a decision. Do we feel this is going too far? So there are those little decisions. There
Yeah.
are those holes that will always have to be filled in
Of
because
course.
we weren't there in the stories. But that is a limitation we still have to work with. And there have been times where we had ideas for endings for stories. We're just like, this is really cool, but we can't do it because it goes so against what actually happened in the true
It'd be
story.
fucking awesome, but
Yeah.
we're breaking our biggest freaking rule, so that'll be a no.
It'd be a big, big no. And I think too, from an acting perspective, like, the script should always be your anchor, and it should always be something that you come back to. Because if you go too far off the reservation, it's just, the story's gonna become Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna become this a bunch of nonsense. Like but also too, you can't be so confined to it that if you're too confined and you're too chained to it, you'll lose the character work that you've done. I've always said, and this is true. First and foremost, I'm in the service of the character, not of the script. But I will always come back to the script for guidance. It's not what fucking Jeffrey Rush said in Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, they're not rules; they're more like guidelines. And I think that's probably how you should treat a script. But it should be serious guidelines, not not them. They shouldn't be. This isn't the rule of law. Etched in stone tablets. But it shouldn't be, thrown in the fire like, I don't need that. Again, happy medium is always good.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we first met on Zach's short film, which we'll be covering shortly,
And then you disappeared on a boat for 2 years, you bastard.
it was a year and a half.
We missed you.
It felt like 3 years, but it was a year and a half. It wasn't all bad.
Long years at sea,
There was some good
sailing
stuff, though.
across the Pacific and I think the Atlantic at one point. I don't remember.
Probably.
Yeah.
But anyway, when we met on that set, I did ask you a question. I can't remember why I came up with this question. Actually, I do. Okay, I just remembered why I asked this.
I'm curious because I don't remember.
Because I went through a thing where I shot video for an ad, and I was also asked to edit it, and so I edited it, and I was actually really proud of the edit, and the people who hired me also really liked it. And then I guess something happened with their client where a re-edit was requested, and I eventually saw the re-edit, and it was just like, what happened? Like, it was just like hard cuts would be happening within dissolves. Yeah, like it was just like, was this edited by a professional?
No, it wasn't. It was probably thrown together by their team who had no idea what the fuck they were doing.
Yeah, like I'm.
You don't do a hard edit in the middle of a dissolve. That's... Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what it might have been too?
Like it looked like they might have tried to dissolve it, but there wasn't enough of the first.
Did you
shot.
add dissolves in your edit? Because actually, now that I'm thinking about it, what they may have tried to do is take your edit and just shorten it however they could. And maybe that required them to do hard cuts. Like if
I
you
did
it-
not use dissolves.
Okay.
Except for, I think I might have done a dissolve to like an ending graphic at the end, but not during the actual shot portion of it.
That's interesting. Like
Yeah.
it's hard to do a hard edit in the middle of a dissolve because usually most programs that I use, it's like if you cut
Yeah,
where a
like-
dissolve is happening, it'll just remove the dissolve.
Yeah, and like where, like the only time I've ever seen that happen is if like I have a clip that
Already has a dissolve in it.
no, like there's a clip. Oh yeah, there's that, but there's also if you have a clip that has like a hard cut to black attached to the end of it, and that hard cut to black happens during the dissolve.
Okay, yeah, there's
Yeah,
that too.
because like okay, for Screaming Room, you have that like 2 seconds of black at the end. So in order to not get that hard cut to black at the end, I have to dissolve at a certain point.
Yeah.
But if I let that dissolve go past a certain point, you will see a quick one frame cut to black before the dissolve finishes. So that's why I always double check my dissolve from that graphic. But yeah, it was like there were like it was just like I don't know who edited this. I don't know why they made the decisions they made. I thought I did a good job. Apparently not. But also I don't pride myself on my editing either. Even though I was not a DP at the time, we all know what I was destined to become. But yeah, so after that long-winded story, I had just gone through seeing a mangled piece of mine that just did not. I didn't feel it did my shooting justice. And so I asked you, as an actor, have you ever had a performance that you felt wasn't represented the way that you performed it because of the edit? And I think you either thought about it for a second or you didn't have an answer at first, but then you realized, yeah, you do have an answer. And so do you want to go through what that answer is?
Well, the answer was Beware of the Clowns. And obviously a lot of this is subjective. You know, I can think that my performance was fantastic, but, you know, other people may disagree with that. You know, I had put in a lot of work. It felt good. You know, there was a lot of, you know, I learned a lot, you know, about performance, about acting. I think this comes down to a fundamental difference. And, you know, and yes, there were some issues with editing and there were some issues with how the performance was cut together. There was, you know, a suggestion made by me with a certain scene that it should have been reshot to show the other actor's performance. I think, and I'm talking more specifically about the last scene, which was, you know, which I think was the best scene acting-wise, but I don't think it was properly represented on screen. You know, obviously statute of limitations, I think, has run out on this one. But I think it really comes down to something that I've said in passing to other people, but I haven't really talked about it in a formal sense like this, is that I think Tim, the director, and also the writer, and everyone else, or at least almost everybody else, wanted to make two different movies. And what I mean by that is that Tim, and this is something that he said publicly, I've heard it from him, I've heard it from his family members that have been talking about him, is that Tim loves the B movies, B and C movies, loves, loves, what's the one where the horrible, the dude with the glasses, you know, says, you know, they're oh my God. Troll 2.
That was Troll 2.
Loves Troll 2, you know, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, you know, loves that. And he was trying to make that. He was trying to make that B movie that's cheesy, that has, you know, horrible acting and overacting, and he wanted to make that. And that's actually, funny enough, he did a concept short before this that is more closer to what he wanted to do. There's actually another thing. It was a shorter thing that the ex-girlfriend that was the editor was actually in, and it was perfect for what he wanted to do. He had hired non-actors to play acting roles to do this. It was a lot, you know, there was some effects, but they were bad effects. It was closer to what he wanted to do, but I think you kind of had this interesting thing going on where you had hired a lot of really, actually very talented people, you know, for the most part, and with the exception of like one other person who I won't get into detail about, that had, you know, several issues with that person on the set, but everybody else.
If you watch the movie, it's not hard to figure out who this person is.
You know, those statutes of limitations haven't quite run out yet. But everybody else is tremendously talented, and you know, and the twins' boyfriend, you know, the one twins' boyfriend is great. The guy who plays the deputy, they're actually brothers in real life.
Oh, really?
And they're both incredibly talented guys, funny as hell. They've done a lot of great stuff, outside of that, and actually more on their own. They've done when they're doing their own thing, it's much better than what them plugging into other people's things. The guy who played the sheriff is unbelievably talented, and far better looking than me, and more muscular, which that sucks. And then, and you also had you had me, and you had a couple other people. You had Vinny, in the fold as well. But you did have a lot of the other. The other clowns that were not necessarily, they weren't really actors. They were just, people who really wanted to be in a horror movie. They're fans. They're fans of a horror movie. And I think that Tim should have just hired, if he wanted that, he should have just hired everybody that were just fans of horror movies that wanted to be in a movie. Instead of actually performing auditions and getting real actors. And you kind of had this bad cocktail of a pretty decently talented crew. Obviously everybody, that's conflicting opinions of taste and everything else, and you had a pretty very talented cast for the most part, but you had a script, and you had a concept, and you had a vision that was designed for it to be a B schlock movie. Because that's what you wanted. That's what you wanted. And you kind of got half and half. You kind of got half of what you wanted because, you made the mistake of trying to involve real actors and real filmmakers to make something like that, when in fact you didn't commit to one way or the other. And that's, I think, where the problems came into effect. And I probably did way more work than was probably necessary for this. But I did the work because I love the work. I love to do that shit. I love the research part of it and everything else. I'm kind of a nerd like that. But I think that yes, it was destroyed by editing, and it probably didn't represent the work that I had put into it. But again, it was almost like half of his cast and crew were making one movie, and the other half were making another movie, and that's where you run into those problems. And that's what I've said about clowns. It never committed to one way or the other. It only, it should have committed to one way or the other, but it never did. And then that's kind of where you land with how the project is and how it stands today. I'd be very interested to see. I have some of the. Actually, Zach, you have some of the raw footage because I think he handed you some. I got some of it for my acting reel.
You gave me, I believe, just that very last scene with your monologue, essentially.
Yeah.
Or your speech, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you gave me 3 variants of that.
And I think that I think you found a better version, than the one they actually used in the film. So
It's in your reel.
It is in my reel. So and Brandon, I think that's what happened. I think that's and again, that's just a matter of not having all your ducks in a row, and that's an easy mistake to fall into. Again, I think, and I'll end it with this. I think half of his cast and crew wanted to make the best possible project they can make, and the other half wanted to purposely make a so bad it's good movie.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you did mention earlier that once the actor's done, the edit's not in their hands.
Correct.
In fact, there are plenty of actors who have been edited completely out of movies.
Yeah.
Do you know the Joaquin Phoenix movie Her?
Yeah, of course.
Chris Cooper was actually in that movie.
Really?
Yes, but all of his scenes were removed during post-production. There was a whole subplot with him.
Oh.
Gone. I feel like there was also another actor who was edited out of The Ring.
Interesting. Okay.
I can't remember who, but I vaguely remember a story like that. A whole bunch of actors were edited out of The Thin Red Line, the 1998 version.
Okay.
And of course, that was directed by Terrence Malick, who is infamous for re-editing roles in post-production. There's actually an interview with Christopher Plummer about his experience on The New World that you can find on YouTube. But yeah, it's amazing how an actor's performance can change in editing, or be completely removed in editing, or like going back to Terrence Malick's The Thin Red Line. Adrian Brody was cast as the lead in that movie,
Okay.
but he's barely in the final movie.
Yeah.
Like in editing, Malick decided, oh, I want this character to be the lead now.
Make the movie dance.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's that old saying, and everything else. You make a movie 3 times.
Yep.
Once when you write it, once when you film it, and once when you edit it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know that from experience.
Absolutely.
So, I do not regret the filming experience of of that at all. I mean, it was a great experience. It was hilarious having myself and Vinny walk into a Walgreens at 2 a.m. in the middle of Indiana with our clown makeup on, and getting some very interesting stares, asking, "Excuse me, sir, where is the makeup remover?" It was.
I like that. Excuse me, we need makeup remover? Yeah, down aisle 5.
The creepy fucks.
You're not gonna kill us, are you? Why the fuck would we do that?
And you know what? And also too, there's if you watch the DVD and you watch some of the outtakes, like you can see that we're having a fucking ball filming it.
Well, I mean, I would hope so.
I did a lot of interesting stuff on that that movie. It was an interesting time. I wouldn't take it back for the world. I really wouldn't. Like I didn't have a bad experience on there. I would have loved it if people saw more of the work that I put in, but that wasn't up to me.
Yeah.
I wasn't in charge of that. So, and that's how it ended up working. What was my first sex scene though? That was interesting.
Do you want
Do you
to
want
talk
to talk about
that?
that or move on?
Were you guys just dancing around that?
Well, we weren't
you're
sure
like,
if you wanted to go that far, but I mean,
Because
it wouldn't-
it does heavily involve another person who is not you, so I didn't know if you were comfortable going into that.
I mean, we're not going to learn her side of the story, but we can at least learn yours.
And I really wish that there was another side to this, but it was completely professional. There was like no story with that. It was perfectly professional. Ralph Fiennes was in an interview with Inside the Actors Studio, and they asked him a question about sex scenes, and he had the best quote, and I'll use it for the rest of my life, which is if I get an erection, I apologize. If I don't get an erection, I apologize.
That is the most genius quote for like actors in sex scenes I've ever heard in my life.
And it just breaks the ice completely. And she was very, very nice. We did what we had to do. Actually, funny enough, the most and then Tim closed on the set. It was just sound, DP, him,
So
and
was
us.
it an actual close set,
It
or
was
was this a terra firma close
It wasn't the terra firma close. We didn't have the deli guy there.
Is that the deli guy?
Okay, some fire children.
Oh my god. Anyways,
If you don't get this fucking thing over with, I'm walking off this fucking set right now.
if I remember correctly, it's not a full sex scene though. Like there was no penetration. Well, it was just a hand job.
No,
right?
it was his hand job, and I, grabbed the boobs.
And I grabbed the boobs.
But that was it. And the funny thing is, and the interesting thing is, in the original script, it's supposed to be 2 girls, but they couldn't.
Was there a cup involved?
No.
Oh.
No, it was supposed to be 2 girls and me, but they could only get 1. So it was very like, get it done, get the job done, and then that was it. Like
Okay.
It was very professional, and I recommend any actor use that line. It works. It works like a charm. It makes everybody laugh. It makes everybody relax. And everybody can get on with their work.
Some poor sap's gonna use that line, or they're gonna get the most serious person in the world. That's not funny. Oh God.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You just have no sense of humor.
You're just evil.
So there's that. Brandon can't find it
He's looking for some quote in his terra firma book.
Yeah.
He wants to do something, but he can't find it because it's such a huge book of so much nonsense.
Yeah, pretty much. But
It is actually a good book. Okay, I can't.
Well, I have no doubt it's a good book.
I can't find it, but in all I need to know about filmmaking, I learned from The Toxic Avenger by Lloyd Kaufman and James Gunn. In an upcoming episode of The Screaming Room featuring Terra Firma, I talk a little bit more about this book, but there's a small portion in the book where Lloyd Kaufman talks about how he doesn't understand how when actors talk about sex scenes, they're just like, oh yeah, we felt nothing, it was just very professional. When he's just like, but then they'll talk about some other scene where it's like, it was so emotional that I cried. And I looked at my co-star and they were crying too. And the crew was crying and everybody was crying. And he's just like, people are emotional. If you're in a sex scene, you're either going to feel something, and that's either going to be attraction, or you're both going to hate each other. I don't understand how human beings forced to like kiss and rub up against each other feel nothing.
You know what's
that is my paraphrasing, but I'm sure you can.
All right, you know something? It's fucking hilarious because it's so true. It's so true. And I don't know how. Like, it's almost like this unwritten rule that you know, it's to avoid any awkward situations and not have any emotion in it. And you know, I'll give you a perfect example. So when I was in a play in college and I was supposed to, the girl who was playing my fiance, like, I hated her. Like, and everyone in the crew, she was just
Evil?
No, not even evil. Just
Annoying?
Annoying. Yes, that. And then just overall a bad person.
So evil.
But the funny thing is, and we would do in like a lovey-dovey scene and everything else. And then I remember one time we literally like kissed and we're supposed to walk off the same direction off stage. We're holding hands, and the second that we were out of the line, the view of the audience, let go of hands and walked completely the opposite direction without saying a fucking word to each other. Like, and like,
I don't know why, but that just feels so normal to me, and I could see myself doing some dumb shit like that. It's just
but you know what the funny thing is, there was nothing, like no malice, no anger, no nothing. It was just like literally I went left, she went right. I went to go talk to the director, and she went over to God knows where. She was always disappear. Like, I never knew. She always showed up when she was supposed to for her cues.
at the very least.
At the very least, but like she was always a mystery about where she was, like during that in between time. I never quite. That's beside the point. But yeah, it was completely emotionless. Why that is, the only logical thing I can say is so things don't get awkward, you keep it emotionless. But that's it. That's the only actual explanation I can get. Besides that, fuck if I know.
I don't know. I feel like maybe you're just in the role, you're doing it, you want to be professional, and bam.
And then you get it done. But yeah, no, that shit in the book is hilarious because it's so fucking true. But yeah, that's the Beware the Clowns though was fun. I learned a lot on it. We laughed far more than we got in arguments or had disagreements. We were like the guy who was playing the boyfriend and the other guy who was playing the deputy were both comedians, and I used to riff off of them, and then we used to riff off each other. So there was a lot of great stuff, and also the guy who played the other twins' boyfriend, who's actually a very, very talented hairstylist. Now, and him and I used to just go back and forth and laugh all the time. We used to riff, and it was great. It was a great experience being on set. So, all the problems that happened afterwards with my disagreement of how the movie was cut didn't take away any of the experiences that I had when I was on set, because it was fun. It was fun to walk through the woods and in the camp and do that, do my thing that I've talked about in many podcasts, where I walk the set or I walk the stage. So it was fun.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great.
So that was Beware of the Clowns. Before we move on to your last experience acting in a horror piece, is there anything else you want to touch on Beware of the Clowns that we did not cover in our questions?
Not particularly. I mean, like I said, it was a great experience. We did a lot of good work on it. It was fun because it was the first time it was kind of fun because I was controlling a lot of the action that was going on. Like, it was because it was a more of a higher end part, and I wasn't really an extra in the back. Like, we got a little bit more. And actually, Tim let me direct a second unit scene in that movie, which was kind of cool. It's I wanted to add in a scene where where the character, the Clown King, enters the camp for the first time, and he's greeting the clown members on the way in. We didn't have any of the proper lights. We just had that huge bonfire lighting. We didn't have any lights because the lights had already been put down. But I'm like, just for continuity and for I think it'd be a cool thing. Do you mind if I borrow the DP? And just do it. It didn't require any sound or anything like that. And they said, yeah. So Alex, the DP, and I just went over there and we grabbed 2 or 3 of the clowns and myself, and I said, hey, this is kind of how I want to do it. Here's my mark. I'll start here, I'll end there, and then as I go through the crowd, I'll greet people, and it was kind of a cool experience. It was the first time I was ever given a leadership role in that regard of saying, yeah, it's your little 30 seconds of a shoot. You control the flow. And it was kind of cool because Alex actually treated me like a director. He didn't treat me like some actor who was playing director for the second. He actually listened to what I had to say, which was very cool, especially for somebody who had. I directed something before then, but it was nothing, like this was an actual production, quite like this. So it was kind of cool to get into that chair and he showed the mutual respect, the same respect he showed to Tim, he showed to me, which was really nice. It was, it was a great experience. I enjoyed it. Zach, did you have any questions on that as well?
No, I mean I know everything there is to know already, so.
Fair enough. I've known you long enough, so. So yeah, that was my experience with Where Are the Clowns.
Cool. So Zach, tell us about Penchant.
No, you son of a bitch.
I don't know. I was the one who had to talk about shit here. I thought that was his job tonight.
Twist ending. It's now an interview with Zachary Smith.
Oh, surprise, surprise.
Not really. Since it's your short, I figured I'd give you the opportunity to tell us what the short is about before we turn questions on to Mark.
Okay, so my movie Penchant is essentially a story about. It's this girl. She has these evil fucking desires. Like, she was born with the desire to kill. From a young age, she's always wanted to do really disgusting, degrading shit. But, she was rehabilitated and stuff, and now she has this voice that's essentially pushing her to try to go back to her ways, but she's constantly resisting. A character comes into her life and kind of, pushes her to go back to that way, because it's like... The way I came up with this story was there's that one shitty fucking show that has to do with Fairy Tale Land and I don't know, Cinderella and Peter Pan. I forget what the fuck it was called. I don't know.
Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, that fucking show. There was this line I heard. It's like, evil's not born, it's made. I'm like, fuck you. I don't know why. It really pissed me off. So I just wanted to make my own movie where it's just the complete opposite. No, evil can be born. It's true. It's out there. Some people are just born evil, and they are very terrible fucking people. So, yeah, that's essentially what my main character was. Mark is the boyfriend of this character. And he eventually gets his heart ripped out. Because he broke her heart. He couldn't handle the pressure. But yeah, that's essentially the general story, I guess. Yeah, squirrels.
Cool. How did you come in contact with Mark?
So, this was, of course, my senior project for college, so I was going all out with it. I'd gotten my crew together and everything, but I actually had to go hire real actors this time. I couldn't use my friends. I didn't know anybody who was, good for the role that I wanted from, Wes and stuff, or Marcus. All their actors and stuff that they'd use, I'm like, they're cool, but they're not what I'm looking for. So I went on Backstage, and that's where I learned to love that website, because it's fucking amazing. And that's where I got...
We've used it for all 3 Living Nightmares, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But that's where I got Kalika, and that's where I met this son of a bitch. Yeah, it was actually... He was the second person to come in for the audition. So somebody was coming in, to do the lead actress role. I was, doing their thing. And then he just kind of wandered in and while we're doing the audition, so I had him actually audition with her so I could see how they played off of each other. I didn't choose that actor. She was good, but she wasn't what I was looking for, of course. But he fucking nailed it. He was essentially everything I wanted in the character. It was fucking perfect. I'm like... I essentially knew right there, but I was going to give the other dudes a chance and stuff anyways, just, to be fair. But I'm like, I already knew for the most part. When Kalika came in and did her audition, I knew she was going to be the one. When Mark did his audition, I knew he was going to be the one. Like, it was just like fucking that. So, and yeah, that's how I met Mark, essentially.
So this is really, really good.
So now let me get Mark's point of view of what happened.
What were you doing
I
when you
hated-
saw my ad? That's
I
what
hated
I'm
Zach
curious
the moment I met him, and I didn't like him. I thought he was an evil son of a bitch. Actually, no, I still
You
think
thought he was evil, and then you met me.
Yeah, well, no, then you just twisted. So you have Evil and Twisted, the brand new sitcom.
I would watch that.
All right. So
Like, I would watch a sitcom starring myself and Zach if it wasn't so close to the truth.
yeah, about that.
Look, if somebody wants to film a sitcom about me and Brandon, I'm fine. Just don't ask me to fucking work on it. I'll act in it. I'm not editing it.
Hey, fair enough.
I promise I will be a diva if I have to act.
Oh God.
Look, if you ask any of us to wipe your ass, I'm gonna stab you for every person you ask.
the shittiest reality show ever. So my perspective, when I'm backstage, I looked at this is really, really good acting advice, by the way, especially for auditions. Be ready to act at the drop of a hat, and never be timid in entering a situation. That was one of those situations that came from years of experience of of walking into a room and going and just being friendly and being open and figuring out what's going on. And I happened to be early to this one, which that's
Yeah, that's a fucking mind-blowing fact right there.
I did it once just to convince him that I would always do that. And then the rest.
He was on time for everything else except for meetings. It's like you gotta fucking fight with him or tell him 2 hours early.
So this is one of those times too when I walked in, I'm like, oh shit, I'm sorry I'm early. And everything should I wait on the hall? Hey, here's the sides, and being the director and trying to save time, you're like, no, just hop in there. And that was one of those times that years of acting had trained me to just be totally comfortable with doing that. Like, yeah, be okay with failing and fucking up, because at that point it's your show. It's your space. You can do whatever the hell you want and everything else. It's your time. I'm playing with house money right now. Like when you walk into a casino, if they just handed you $20, why not? Why the fuck not? Why not play? You never have to come back if you don't want to. But if they're going to give you free money, use it. That's what an audition space is. It's a time for you to have free money. You have no risk at that point. And when and it was perfect timing when you say, hey, why don't you both were here, it's a matter of circumstance, jump in there, see how you guys mix and match and work. I can't remember if you told me in the audition, which I thought was really weird, or you told me later. If it was later, that makes more sense. It's probably better. In the future, never do that again. If it was during the audition, but you actually said, I know they're supposed to make me have you do this second time.
No, I did tell you that during the audition.
That was, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna tell you this right now. Don't ever fucking do that ever again. Don't ever say that because if in the event that somebody comes in and they're better or more suited than that,
yeah,
that person's gonna be real fucking pissed. And then so that was one of those things that I went, oh, that's weird, but I guess you must like me. And then you called me up. You said, "Hey, let's do it. Let's start working on this." It had to be a 2-part, and
yeah, like because I had to shoot this thing in 2 parts. I wrote the first part. Okay, so here's another thing. I wanted to act in it, but because our fucking teacher was a pain in the ass and stubborn as shit, I couldn't have like a big role or anything like that. I don't know why I made such a big fucking fuss about it, but whatever. So I wrote a prequel to it essentially. And that was going to be the part I shot for school, and I was going to shoot the other part later while I still had access to their tech and everything. So I talked with all the actors and everything after I brought them on board and just, hey, would you be interested in shooting, a second part of this later? And they're like, yeah, cool. So I'm like, okay, that just helps solidify shit. But yeah, continue.
And the funny thing is that you and I started talking, after the shoot, you and I just started bullshitting. About life and about movies and and our certain passions and everything else. And then I really liked your script. I liked how you wrote, and I said, I was looking for a writing partner. Then you and I started to write together, and then became friends. And then And then obviously the second round of shooting came a little bit later. But that first shoot was fun. I remember being really, really cold, but I remember having a lot of fucking fun. I remember sitting in the living room, and I believe it was your living room of your old house.
This is my grandparents' place when I was still living with them.
Yep.
It was cleaning that place up and getting it organized to shoot everything in there was such a fucking nightmare. And here's the thing, I also had to reorganize my room entirely. Like, my room was a fucking mess. It was just cluttered with a whole bunch of shit, so I just completely redid it, emptied the fuck out of it. And even my closet too. I can't remember where the hell I stored all that shit too. Like, I either did a really good job organizing, or I just threw a bunch of shit somewhere. I'm just like, I'll fucking deal with this later. God damn, getting that place set up to shoot in there was a pain in the ass.
You made everybody feel welcome.
Oh yeah.
You know, I certainly felt comfortable.
Yeah, and that's another thing. That was my first time hosting auditions. Like, I remember helping Wes with his auditions, but I wasn't hosting them, so I was just like, all right, fucking, it's not on me. If something goes wrong, it's just like, oh, well, Wes, we fucked up. Well, mainly you fucked up, but I'm in the clear. But my time around, I was fucking nervous as shit, which is why I'm glad Marcus was there to help me out. But no, it went a hell of a lot smoother than I could have anticipated.
And, you know, and fuck you, man. You're a lightning rod for good casting.
Oh, I know I am, and I'm proud of it.
I don't know how that happens, but you are. But
I know how to pick people.
Yeah,
I know the role I want. I know the person I want for that role, and I'm gonna make sure it fucking happens.
And it certainly did.
What'll happen when you're finally wrong someday?
I'm not going to be.
We get to tell you I told you so.
No, you don't.
Or welcome to my hell.
He's gonna retire after short number 4 and make sure that it never happens.
No, dude, I'm too fucking paranoid to fuck something up like that. Like, I vet the shit out of every actor I choose and just make sure it's just like, okay, yeah, you're the right one. Like, that's why I like doing in-person auditions. I hate doing video auditions because you don't really get a feel for the person. When you're doing an in-person audition, you can talk to this character, you can get a vibe for what they're like, who they are, and stuff like that. And Mark, he came in with that fucking classic Mark energy, like, hey, I'm Mark Conway. It's just like, all right, cool.
I like this guy. I like what this guy's all about.
Yeah, you can tell if somebody's full of shit. Like, there was one guy who came in who was high off his fucking rocks.
Yeah, that happens too.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, in-person auditions all the way. Because that's another thing. If they're not going to show up to the audition, why the hell would they show up to your film?
No, I know. And you know what? And this actually was kind of a fun role because it was very, like, there's two different...
Oh, you son of a bitch! You pulled an American Psycho in my movie. I'm just realizing.
What did I do?
Okay, so the part where you're with the girl you're cheating with, it's just like Lindsay's calling you, and you're just like, I gotta go. I'll call you. And you improv that shit. Realizing this fucking 5 years later.
Dude, and Nicole, like, died.
Subliminal messaging is strong in this one.
Wow. Jesus Christ.
That's amazing. I can't believe you just got that after all these years.
Fucking hell. All right, continue with what you were saying.
I wish we had video of this because it's amazing to see the look on Zach's face as his whole world turns upside down.
Yes.
One of these days we'll start doing video podcasts again. It's just too much of a pain in the ass to do it with our current setup right now.
All right, this is how good Zach is a director. He actually let me go. Like, and he wasn't restrictive, and he said, hey, like, do that, like, do a different version every time you come back to the door. Like, it was literally like that blooper from Final Girls where you saw the different versions that Adam did. It's exactly what I did. There was like 5 different, like, I'll call you, I'll come back, like, I'm never coming back. Here's your panties back. Like, it's just...
Dude, I remember everybody was cracking up when you did that bit. I'm like, that is fucking beautiful. All right.
All right, we're keeping it. But yeah, it was there's 2 different types of, in my eyes, always 2 different types of like American film acting. It's literally naturalistic and immersion. So and you can do different versions of it, but it pretty much boils down to them. Naturalistic is like George Clooney and Jimmy Stewart. Like, it's very naturalistic. It's very, almost pretty much being yourself. And then immersive is Brando, like where you dissolve into the character and you do all that stuff. And this is kind of cool because I got to be a lot more naturalistic. It was just me being it was me being the character, of course, but there wasn't a lot of research that was necessary. I didn't have to like divulge. It was very light.
Yeah.
Like it didn't have to be heavy.
It was an important role, but it was still simple.
Correct. It didn't have to be, this big dramatic role. He was just a dude.
Yeah.
It was just a guy who was, working, and he was fucking around with another girl because he wasn't man enough to actually break up with that girl. Like a lot of guys, it happens to a lot of guys where they especially if it's a girl that's unstable.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to break up with her because you don't want to be the cause of her ultimate demise or somebody else's demise in this particular case. And that's kind of like how I approached the guy. He's just a dude. He was just a guy who was working a crazy job, and he was also had the monumental task of trying to be her support as well as dealing with all of his bullshit of working a full-time job and working overtime and then also coming home and and like what kind of mood she gonna be in and what kind of drama I have to deal with, and that's the reason why he found comfort somewhere else, and that's kind of where that mindset of that character was coming from, and it's something that I easily spotted. Not anything that I pulled from my own life, but well, actually, yeah. I mean, I've been in several situations where I didn't want to break up with somebody. I didn't want to break up with somebody because I don't want to be the bad guy, and this was no different than this situation. So you pull some shit from your own life sometimes. And you don't want to be too close because otherwise it gets a little too personal. You gotta do about maybe 10% to 30% of your own life, and then the rest of it is all your exaggeration of imagination. So can't get too close because otherwise you end up like that sitcom. This would be even more hilarious if it wasn't so close to heart.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember the first experience was pretty good. I remember walking into the bathtub scene and going, "Holy shit, this is Nightmare on Elm Street in here," because it looked exactly like Nightmare on Elm Street, and I'm sure that might have been on purpose, but it sure the fuck looked like it.
I don't think that was my intention at the time, but hey, cool. I'm fucking glad somebody liked that.
It was probably working on you subliminally.
Of course, like the American Psycho line. That's
Jesus.
So that was part one of Pension.
That was
part one.
And then there was part two,
Which happened
was shot how long after part one?
roughly 9 months later.
It was in the summer.
Yeah. It was early September, if I remember correctly, because I was rushing to get this shot because I was approaching like school was almost over for me.
Yeah.
So I wanted to use the school's equipment while I still could because I figured, well, I don't know where my life's going to go after this, so I need something when I'm out of here. So I'm going to shoot this and hope for the fucking best.
And that was the first time we worked together, I believe.
Yes.
And I was able to help you out because I was actually on vacation at that time. I was working night shift at Target.
Yeah.
That's right.
And the days I was shooting were like the last 3 days of his vacation.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was actually supposed to be working on another short at the beginning of my vacation that fell through for various reasons. And then I went and visited my brother in Seattle with my family for a week, and then I came back, and my last week was basically helping you out. And I actually remember the day we went to the school to test out the cameras, and you learned a few things about my time at the school. But that's
the terrified look on Scott's face. He's like, "Oh shit,
he's back."
I never left.
Oh fucking god damn.
It was the epitome of that scene in Freaks and Geeks when the one former student who went to college comes back to visit his brother, and the one teacher's like, "I hate it when they come back."
I wasn't around for that.
Nope. But that's for a conversation for another time. So yeah, I was helping you out for that one, and so that was the set that you and I met.
That is correct. It was. I thought there was gonna be something along with that.
I thought I was going to lead into a question with that, but for some reason I didn't.
my brain stopped
Did I
working.
mention I'm very tired?
Yeah,
today?
yes.
What are your thoughts on the theory of relativity?
42.
Yeah, so that was an interesting set because you were tied to a chair for like 99%.
And his pants
Of
were off
that.
for about 45 of it.
Okay, so there's a lot of things that happen on this set. But first of all, yes, I did meet Brandon for the first time, and actually, if memory serves correctly, we hit it off pretty well the first time we were chatting.
Yeah.
Because we got in a long conversation about your Woodstock script, and we were talking about your documentary, and just talking about film, and I figured out something that will pretty much be the epitome of Brandon and ours relationship, or one of the pillars of our relationship is we can get real technical and real specific about a lot of shit. We figured out that we're on the same brain wavelength a little bit later, but actually I'm pretty sure we found it out then too. So because I think there's a couple conversations where I would say something and you'd be like, "Damn, Mark, I just thought of that," and then and the reverse would happen, and then it's a tradition that's continued up until this date. And then Zach and I are really good at talking about general, that's awesome, and let's blow this shit up and all that stuff. And Brandon's like, well, no, well, did you know about this? And I'm like, yeah, but did you know about that? A lot more, technically proficient and knowing about, trivia, because of course Brandon is the IMDb champ of the world.
I don't know about the world. Definitely of this room.
Sure.
I'm going to go ahead and say the world.
And definitely on most sets I've been on.
Pretty much.
Again, the world.
The world.
And by most, I mean all. I'm
Fair enough,
trying to be somewhat modest. I'm failing miserably at that.
Yes, you are.
Anyways.
But it ended up being a great conversation. But a lot of things happened on that set, Zach, didn't they?
Oh my god.
Yeah, and you got to sort of get your feet wet in a producer role, sort of.
That I did. Well, no, it was. I don't think
Shooting
sort of.
that
It was.
thing was a nightmare. Everything that could have went wrong. Just every time I turned around, I'm like, God hates me. What the fuck?
All right. So what happened?
All right. So let's start. Day one, it was going to be a 4-day shoot. So day one, we're getting ready to shoot and everything. We spend the whole day shooting and we lose the location. Already, I'm just like, I'm not saying this out loud, but in my head, I'm screaming, fuck! I knew it was
That's pretty much what my brain is doing 24 hours a day.
So yeah, Mark called his dad, and we were able to use the original location he thought he showed me, but I just wasn't sure that we were gonna be able to get it and stuff. So I was just fucking flying around. That's why I went with Marcus's basement. But Mark was able to pull through, and he got me a location. And his dad, that was the first time his dad saved my ass.
It seems to happen quite often.
Yeah.
Shout out to Papa Conway.
Indeed.
So that is, and funny enough, that's actually my dad's childhood home in the city, which we proceeded to. It worked out. The stars were aligned because the downstairs apartment was vacant, and they had a basement downstairs. And it was perfect because all of the cast and crew, when they weren't shooting or they were, in between setups, can go up there and go in the air conditioning and just relax and not be bothered. And then while everybody else was, getting a year taken off their life by inhaling large quantities of dust, except Jill. Jill will.
Jill was the one who was smart and came down with a mask.
Everybody
slowly started to adopt that policy, but me and Mark
adopted it and then quickly abandoned it.
The
glasses.
Yeah, it was I just couldn't work with it.
Yeah, no, I was one of the very few who just went the entire time without dealing with a mask. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this. Fuck this. I just want to get this done. Mark went 90% of the time. There was one point where he came down. I'm like, I got to do it. I'm like, whatever, that's fine. Don't kill yourself.
It's a very strange precursor to what the world is going through right now.
Yeah, Jill was wearing a mask before it was stylish.
Yeah, she was doing it before it was cool.
Before it was in vogue.
I don't know if it's cool now, but...
Well, if you're not wearing one, you're usually getting yelled at, so...
There's that.
There is that.
But it was... there was a lot of... There's some other personal conflicts that came on in the set as well.
Besides that one thing, there was still plenty of other shit that happened that it was just like, fuck.
I think the power went out. At
That
one
was
point.
literally the final day. So all right, so here's all the events leading up to it. So day 2, it's us just catching up and trying to like, okay, we might be able to reuse that shot, but fuck it, let's just get all the shit we did from day 1. I'm surprised we were able to finish that fucking shoot. I really am, because we lost an entire day. But we pulled through because we're fucking awesome. Anyways, yeah, what the fuck was I doing? Yeah, so day 2 was essentially a recoup day. Day 3, let's see. Oh yeah, I'm ordering lunch, and for some reason there was a charge from New York or something like that. I don't know. Either way, my credit card was declined. The place we were ordering from, I guess they like do charges from New York. So I had to call Chase, get them to fucking reactivate my card and allow this charge so we could get food over there and just get everybody fed, while all this shit's still happening and all that. The final day...
I actually remember that. I remember you pacing in the backyard on
Yeah.
the phone with Chase, and I'm like, dude, what's going on? And then my fucking bank, man. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. The final day, the one good thing I got out of this was I got to cover some... This is still one of the fucking highlights of my film career. I got to completely drench somebody in blood. I fucking loved doing that. Granted, because somebody is a little perfectionist and clean freak, we had to make a trash can, like, fucking aisle for her to walk through.
Dude, it wasn't my place to wreck, bro.
It was a basement.
Again,
Look, if there's a few bloody footprints, nobody's going to ask... Well, then again, you are Italian, so I guess there's a fair point there.
sometimes it's best to ask questions, sometimes not so much.
Look, you were in Florida. It would have been fine.
Everyone's always in Florida. But yeah, a lot of crazy shit happened.
But yeah, like, but here's the thing. We had to shoot her scenes within, I think it was like 30 minutes. Like, she got there, we drenched her in blood, shot her scenes as quick as possible, showered her, and sent her on her way. We did all this within like 30, 40 minutes. So it was like, okay, now that that's done, let's continue. Power to the building gets cut.
Yeah, because somebody didn't pay their comment bill. So I don't even know what we did. Like,
You called somebody and we managed to get power on after like another 20 or 30 minutes. We spent the rest of the day shooting. We finally finished and I was like, oh, thank God this is fucking over.
yeah, it was a fun experience.
I just remember going back to school the next day and thinking, thank fucking God that's over. No, I remember going home and taking my first shower and it's just black coming off of
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I
I
remember that,
look down and
yeah.
I'm just like, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was gross how much dust was in there.
It
Of
was
course,
amazing
since
how
I
much
wasn't
dust was
wearing-
down there.
Since I wasn't wearing a mask, I was breathing in dust for 3 days straight.
It didn't affect me because of how I'm used to living. At the time, I was used to living in pretty shitty conditions, or not the
Like
greatest.
I sneezed when I got home, and it was black snot.
yeah.
And I'll
Remember that?
I'll spare you the gory details of what I did to clean myself out,
Good. Yeah, I know. The
because
black
it is
snot,
scarier
black everything.
than any horror movie you will ever watch.
Dude, I just remember coming out of the shower and looking and just like, wow, I didn't know I was this white. It's like, holy shit. I said the before and after. Yup, that fucking photo.
I remember that photo.
Same here.
Yeah,
It was a
yeah.
good fucking day.
I'm
I'm running around shirtless because I'm sweating bullets and dust and just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but cool. Oh God, I love that.
I'll actually send you a couple of these photos so you can throw it into the edit.
Yeah.
There's me. There's that.
Yeah, fucking all bloodied and scarred up.
But yeah, no.
There were fun moments on that shoot, don't get me wrong, but overall it was just... with everything that was going wrong, directing and acting was kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, you were a
'cause I was
producer, you were a director, you were an actor,
writer.
you were the writer.
I still have that bloody script.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I still have that production binder. I'm never getting rid of that thing. It's like, it's just a memento from like...
Frankly, if you're doing all that stuff and you weren't stressed, I would be worried.
Exactly. 110%.
Yeah, like, of all the sets I've been on, that one was definitely, like... Even the bad sets I've been on, those weren't my sets. When it's your set and all that shit's happening, it's like, just freaking the fuck out. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, it was a hell of an experience.
And then, like I said, this asshole had his pants off 45%
all
of
right,
the time.
all right. There's a very
I don't want to get blood on my pants.
It was a very specific reason. There's actually two very specific reasons. One of them had to do with my pants, and one of them had to do with Harrison Ford. I
wonder which reason takes the higher property.
Well, the pants, of course. I had brought brand new jeans. I didn't want to get blood on them. And two, though, I just watched an interview with Harrison Ford talking about the Last Crusade. And he was filming that scene with Sean Connery where they're both tied up and there's that giant fire. And Sean Connery says, it's like, hey, like, it's super hot in here. Like, we're just shooting from the waist up, right? And they're like, yeah. Like, can I take off my pants? And they're like, yeah, absolutely, Sean.
Mark, tell that story again, but actually do Sean Connery's
No,
voice.
I'm not. I would do a terrible job. I will not do
I know.
that. I refuse.
All right, can you do it the Bane way, though?
No.
They're essentially the same thing.
They are. And then Harrison Ford said, well,
All right, well,
Sean's going to take off
If
his
somebody ever asks you if you can say it the Bane way, the only answer there is of course.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus. So anyway, so Harrison Ford asked, hey, can I take off my pants too? And they said, sure. And then Sean Connery and Harrison Ford both did that.
Doing a fucking
that
scene
whole
together
pantsless.
Yeah, Sean Connery and Harrison Ford did a scene together pantsless, so there you go.
So I had two reasons to justify why I asked that question.
Yeah, I got to see Mark in his tighty whities before his girlfriend
I
did.
never wear tidy whities, sir.
Bullshit!
That is a blatant lie, sir. Those were boxers, and
We do not have the video evidence to prove it because nobody got shots of you with the waist down, nor did they get photos, which I'm kind of surprised.
That it didn't happen. And then and it was always interesting when I was.
I still have Marcus David Brandon.
And also too, right when we were filming that scene with no pants on, Jill recognized me from Beware of the Clowns.
I like how she chooses then to recognize
I was hysterical. She's like, oh my god, you were in Beware of the Clowns. You were great. I'm like, thanks.
I remember that too. I'm like, holy shit, you have a fan. Good job. I really can't wait to see this movie.
How did that end, Zach?
I saw the movie.
We're laughing because of the faces we're making right now at each other.
Fucking Brandon.
But yeah, it was another fucking dynamite experience. And I will say this too: is Zach as a director, he's one of those people that as a director and actor relationship that I trust implicitly. Not and I trusted him implicitly before we were partners in a business. One of those people that I just, he says, hey, let's work this out. I know what he's telling me is always in service of the story. And I always can trust his judgment call when it comes to how he directs his actors. And yeah, we can have difference of opinion on the producerial stuff, but him and I have always been able to find a middle ground when the acting and director relationship. And it also is easier for him, I'm assuming, because I can only guess on this perspective, that he lets me do my thing and I let him do his thing. And we both come together because we both want it to be a great project. And that's always number one. We both have the same mission, which is making this the best project we possibly can. We both respect each other's talents when it comes to acting and directing. And we both trust each other. And I certainly trust him very, very much on directing, which makes the relationship really fucking easy, and makes things flow a lot easier when they're a director and an actor aren't at each other's throats. So it ends up working out, and in this case, it did work out. And also Zach being the editor, he also knows how to respect a performance. He knows, hey, I'm going to do what I can to make sure this, like I said, this is the best project. But by making this the best project, I'm going to make sure that I take the best cuts, the best takes from an actor's performance to make it the best project I possibly can. So I trust him there in directing, and I also trust him in editing, especially trust him in editing. Because he's done a lot more editing than I've seen him direct, but that's just sheer numbers. But that being said, and same thing with Brandon. Brandon has the same philosophy of trying to make this the best possible project he can. And that's another thing that I trust him in. If I ever was acting for Brandon in a directing relationship, it would be no different. I just happen to have the experience with Zach at this point. So, but yeah, that was always the one thing that was easy for me with Zach was we always were on the same page and we had the same mission, which is we want this to be the best fucking project it possibly can be. And then the rest is all bullshit. The whatever all their stresses or other bullshit that flies in the face of the project. That's neither here nor there. Like we're here right now. Let's get it done. Let's get it over with. Let's get it done as soon as possible. Kind of has that Clint Eastwood feel, which I gave him that piece of advice from Clint Eastwood, and he still does it to this day.
Yeah, absolutely, I fucking love it.
What was the advice? What was the story?
Instead of saying action, just say whenever you're ready.
And
it's nice, it's smoother, I like the way it sounds, and I don't feel like such a prestigious prick.
A pretentious prick?
Nah, prestigious.
That works too. But yeah, it was a hell of a project. Kalika was fantastic to work with.
I still fucking love her performance in that movie.
Oh, no doubt.
One of these days I may release it. Actually, I've been thinking for a while I kind of want to go back and just re-edit the whole thing. I have a lot more skills now that I didn't have back then, so I might be able to salvage some of the shit that I wasn't able to salvage before. So, I don't know. I may go back, take a look at it. Maybe even release it on the Midwest Horror Network channel. I don't fucking know.
I mean, do you really think it'll pass the approval of you, me, Mark, and David?
That's a good fucking question. It's only one way to find out.
When we know exactly what we do, we gotta...
Because I'm a tough producer to convince.
No, you're not. All I gotta do is give you some insomnia cookies and you'll shut up and be like, okay.
You don't know me.
No, that'll definitely work.
Let's see. Where's this contraband bag of Twix, Snickers, or Starburst? Yeah, look, there's the Starburst wrappers over there.
Let me guess, Brandon. Those aren't yours. You're holding those for a friend.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Justin told me it was the opposite, but okay.
That's funny. That's what Justin said about them too. Someone who's telling the truth. But the biggest test though is the test on the big screen.
Yeah, no, the fucked up part is one part is gonna look much better than the other.
Oh yeah.
God. This is when I discovered the real difference in quality of cameras. So we did some side-by-side comparisons. I shot the first part on the, I think it was the AF100s they're called.
Was it their camera with the interchangeable lenses?
Yes.
Yeah, that was their AF100.
The AF100s, those were the Skulls cameras. And then for the second part, when I was getting everything ready, Brandon's like, what camera are you going to use? I'm probably going to use the AF100. We can use my GH4. And Wes had, because I wanted to do dual camera setup just to be more efficient. So, and Wes had his GH4, so it's just like we can do dual camera setup with with mine and his. So I'm like, all right, well, let's do a camera test. Let's see how they look. So we set up this thing in the green screen room and we did a side-by-side comparison, and holy fuck. The quality, the visual difference between the GH4 and the
AF.
Yeah, AF100 was just night
and we also did
day.
that test before I really knew what I was doing.
Either way, it was just like, I looked at the footage and I'm like, all right, out of the question. I'm not taking out those fucking cameras, thankfully. I just took out gear. And fuck the cage! I just want to point this out. I wanted to, bounce disc. I wanted to take out a bounce disc and along with a whole bunch of other equipment, but I'm just like, hey, can I get a bounce disc? I don't think we have a bounce disc. Yeah, we do. We have one right here. I'm like, that's big for a fucking bounce disc. It's like, you'll be fine. We get to set, open it up. It's not a bounce disc. It's a fucking green screen.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
That's super stupid.
The people who fucking worked at the cage were fucking morons. Just incompetent fools, but whatever, that's besides the point.
I have my own stories about that, but that's not for this podcast.
Like, the only person, towards the end of that school's lifespan, and when I was going there was only one person who worked there that had any idea what the fuck he was doing, and that was Freddie. Freddie was the only one who even tried to take care of, the film equipment, but, he's a film guy, and he knows what the fuck he's doing. Everybody else, fuck it. Goddamn morons.
Anyway, but Zach's not bitter. But yeah, no, it was a good experience. A lot of fun, fun stuff happened, and obviously I met you guys, and I met David. So I mean, yeah, there's some drama, there's some activity, there was a lot of back and forth shit, but overall it was a really good filming experience. Yeah, of course, the dust will take a year of all of our lives, as the joke said.
Yep.
But,
Probably 2 or 3 for me.
Yeah, but
Because I just stood in that basement most of the time. I'm like, I'm not fucking leaving till this is done.
dude, I literally got a couple of breaks. Because I remember I was on the patio on deck.
There was a break that Zach forced me to take.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's
I
when
don't
I was
even
talking to
remember
you.
it.
Because I was behind the camera during one of your close-ups, and for some reason, the look on your face just kept cracking me up.
Oh,
And so you
literally the last shot of the fucking movie. Oh, God. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, no, I fucking hate... I don't even think I used that shit. No matter who came
I
down,
knew it.
everybody started laughing. I'm like, oh my God, I fucking hate this.
So yeah, I was right.
Yeah. Fuck you.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall it was a good experience acting wise. Again, it was a good natural experience being on there and a fuck ton of fun. I mean, this is just goes back to, it was the same thing from from Tony and from Beware of the Clowns. It was just reaffirmed the culture, and it reminded me that hey, that you should be more a part of this. Every example of the culture that I had experienced before was probably even more tenfold on this. The passion, the drive, the love of what of the genre of horror was, and it's easy to get sucked up into that, and it's a good thing to get sucked up into that. It can be very intoxicating to be part of that kind of community because it's surprisingly refreshing.
It is the most entertaining community of filmmakers.
Indeed.
I swear to God, there's no other group of filmmakers that I would rather hang out with.
And there's no group of filmmakers that are like it.
Yeah.
There's not any other filmmakers that do what the horror community does. Not like that. Maybe a little bit of the science fiction stuff, but not even that.
To a degree, sure, with science fiction and maybe even a little bit of action, but no, horror is just fucking
Its own world unto
Yeah.
itself. So, but yeah, no, that's definitely good. Any other questions from that?
Oh, no. I can't think of anything.
I can't think of anything either.
It was a hell of a ride on those horror, and I'll continue to act them. Obviously, this is my role as executive producer and then on set producer, and then co-owner takes a lot of time all onto itself. So, and obviously with the pandemic, acting has kind of taken a backseat to me, but
Just a lot of filming in general is taking a back seat.
well, it's true, but that doesn't mean that this next thing will be my first time in front of the camera in a while. I'm very excited.
Yeah, same here.
It'll be good to do my little walk again, and then walk on the set early and get comfortable with the space like I've always done. I've been doing since I was 8 years old. I miss that feeling. I miss that feeling of being on a set. And it'd be nice because I know, it'd be even more interesting because I know everybody that's going to be there. So it'd be cool to see that perspective. This will be interesting too because this is the first time I've ever been an actor and an executive producer at the same time.
Yeah.
So that should be an interesting
Yep.
an interesting thing. So hopefully it doesn't tie up too much responsibility on either end. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good stuff. It's going to be a good time. We have the best team around. I wish I met you guys earlier.
Same.
But
Would have loved to have known you guys in high school. Maybe it wouldn't have sucked so fucking much.
probably, I can honestly say for me the same.
God, it was such a waste of 4 years, I swear to God.
I didn't even live in the same state as you guys when I was in high school.
To be fair, he didn't live in the city. I was by him a decent
He
amount
was
of
at
the
least
time. but-
in Illinois.
Yeah.
True, very very true.
I still can't believe you were in Algonquin that whole fucking time.
Yeah, it was.
God, not even far from where I was.
No,
like,
it was less than 10 minutes away.
Like, seriously, that whole fucking time, just wow.
Yep. So it is often a small world. But yeah, you know what though? But I'm glad it happened when it happened because, all the experiences that I went through led me here. Because if I was more green on acting, I wouldn't have felt as comfortable in that audition. I wouldn't be able to do the stuff that I was doing without years of being embarrassed and feeling awkward and getting used to finding a voice and finding a movement and finding who I am as a performer and as an actor. So I mean, it was those years of experience that made me prepared for when I finally got into your room, because then it was it was an easy decision for you. You're like, I can trust you with this part that I've written. So I needed to be those. I need to go through those experiences of getting fired and going and playing a extra in a horror movie, and then going to Beware of the Clowns and having that experience, and then finally landing in the right room at the right time. And that's what this is all about, is being...
That's something you should never forget. Every experience is a learning experience, and that includes failures. Failures are the biggest learning experience.
The best.
That's one thing that our fucking storyboarding teacher said that's actually right. Fail as much as you can in school, because it save your ass later on in life.
For real. And my old chorus teacher said, luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Interesting.
Be prepared and practice your craft, and then you'll be able to seize that opportunity when it comes around.
Yep.
So
I think that's a good place to go out on.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts before we take our audience out?
Zach?
Squirrels.
Of course. Brandon?
It was good interviewing you here on Inside the Actors Studio.
Oh, Jesus
I wish.
Christ.
I wish.
Inside the E! True, not Hollywood story.
That one. James Lipton's not with us anymore, although he was like 100.
Jesus Christ.
He was up there.
He was
I don't think he hit 100.
but he was like 98 or 97. He was up there.
Fucking old.
He was a lot closer than you would have thought just by looking at him.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
But it's been a hell of a ride. All the actors out there that are listening, be in horror movies, they're great. You never know who you land. You might walk into an audition and then 4 or 5 years later walk out with 3 new best friends. Never know what'll happen then. So seize every opportunity that you can, because you never know what it'll lead you to.
All right. Thank you for listening to this week's Nightmares podcast. You can find us at Midwest Horror Network on all of our social medias, including here on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and
Slasher. And of course, if you'd be so kind and check out all of our amazing other programs, which, by the way, you won't be notified about that unless you click that little bell that's right there. So every time we post something new, you'll be notified about it. And you can check out our amazing programs like Living Nightmares, as we mentioned. It's a narrative show where we go ahead and explore real-life experiences that have happened to people. And also check out our great show, The Screaming Room, where we go ahead and react, watch, and discuss lesser-known horror movies. And also check out Zach's awesome show, Let's Play a Game, where Zach checks out all of the awesome horror video games that are out there. He plays and reacts to them in real time. Thank you very much, as always. Give this a like and a share, and a subscribe. And tell your aunts, brothers, sisters, uncles, best friends. Thank you very much, as always, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.